A legendary horse, a relentless storm, and a cruel act no one would dare imagine. When all seems lost, the impossible happens, changing the fate of a city forever. The storm raged mercilessly over the Blue Ridge Mountains. Thunder boomed between the valleys, as if announcing a dark prophecy. Sitting in her wheelchair by the window of the small wooden house, Lily Rivers watched the raindrops stream down the glass while trying to push away the thoughts that had been tormenting her for weeks. "Lily, you need to rest." "We have a long day tomorrow," said Mrs. Martha, the cook with calloused hands who had been caring for her since her parents had passed away. The 10-year-old girl nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on the darkness outside. Since the accident that claimed her parents' lives and left her without the use of her legs, Lily had developed a heightened sensitivity. Something wasn't right. The frequent visits from Victor Hammond, the most powerful rancher in the region, always brought that feeling of discomfort. "Will Mr. Hammond come tomorrow to take care of the ranch papers?" asked Lily, her voice almost a whisper. Mrs. Martha stopped arranging the sheets, her face hardening. "Yes, my child. He said he'll take care of everything, that we don't need to worry." "I don't trust him, Martha. Daddy always said that." "Shh," interrupted the cook, quickly approaching. "We shouldn't talk like that, little one. The walls have ears." Lily noticed the fear in the woman's eyes, which only increased her anguish. Her parents had never trusted Victor Hammond, despite having business with him. Her father, Anthony Rivers, had mentioned several times about important documents kept in his office, papers that would prove something serious about the rancher. The night wore on, and with it the storm gained strength. Lily couldn't sleep. She wheeled herself to the desk and picked up the small diary her father had given her months before the accident. Flipping through it, she found a note hidden between the pages. "Lily, if anything happens, look for the blue flash drive in the false bottom of the office drawer. Trust only old Jack." Her heart raced. How had she not seen that before? She needed to act quickly. She knew Victor would come the next day to resolve pending matters at the ranch. In a burst of courage, Lily maneuvered her wheelchair into the dark hallway. The house was silent, with only the sound of intense rain outside. When she reached her father's office, she heard voices. She carefully approached the partially open door. "Martha, you know I can't risk it." The girl might have found something. Victor's deep voice sent chills down Lily's spine. "Please, Mr. Hammond, she's just a child. She doesn't know anything," Mrs. Martha pleaded. "Tomorrow I'll resolve everything. I can't let those lands slip from my hands, understand? They contain more wealth than anyone imagines." Lily backed away, her heart pounding violently. Carefully turning her wheels, she returned to her room, her mind buzzing with thoughts. This wasn't just about the ranch. There was something more. Something Victor Hammond feared she might know. The next morning, the storm had given a truce, but the sky remained grey and threatening. Victor arrived early, his artificial smile not reaching his cold eyes. "How's my little Lily?" he asked, with false kindness. "Fine, Mr. Hammond," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "How about a ride? I have something to show you." Lily hesitated, but knew she needed to buy time to discover what her father had hidden. What would that be? A special place on the property, a lookout point. From there you can see the entire Blue Ridge. Your mother loved that place. The mention of her mother made Lily lower her guard. Perhaps she could use the opportunity to better understand what was happening. As Victor pushed her wheelchair out of the house, she didn't notice the desperate look in Mrs. Martha's eyes, nor did she see when the cook discreetly picked up the phone to make an urgent call. The sky darkened again as they advanced along the dirt path. The thunder returned, echoing through the mountains, announcing that the storm would return in full force. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from and we'll continue. Dark clouds were gathering over the Blue Ridge Mountains as Victor pushed Lily's wheelchair along an increasingly steep and deserted path. The girl felt her heart pounding harder as they moved away from the house. Something in her instinct screamed, "Danger." "Mr. Hammond, I think it's going to rain hard again. Shouldn't we go back?" suggested Lily, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Victor tightened his grip on the wheelchair handles. "Don't worry, little one. We're almost there. You'll love the view." The path became narrower and rockier. Lily clutched the edges of her chair, feeling each jolt as a warning. Her father had never taken her this far, especially not to a place called a lookout point. Was she just imagining things? "You know, Lily," Victor began in a strangely calm voice, "your family has always been very special to me. Your father and I had big plans." "What kind of plans?" The man hesitated for a moment. "Let's just say we discovered something valuable on your land. Something that could change the future of the entire region." Lily suddenly remembered the whispered conversations between her parents, the nights when her father returned late from his office with maps and documents. The pieces were starting to fit together. "It's about the springs, isn't it?" Dad talked. "About protecting them." Victor stopped abruptly. Lily realized they had reached the top of a cliff. The view was breathtaking. The valley stretched majestically below them, cut by a rushing river that wound between the rocks. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a sublime spectacle. But at that moment, the beauty of the place only intensified the fear growing inside her. "I see you know more than you appear to, Lily," said Victor, his friendly tone completely disappearing. "Your father was always a foolish idealist. He wanted to preserve what could make us rich." With a sudden movement, he spun the wheelchair, making Lily face the abyss in front of her. The first drops of rain began to fall, cold against her skin. "What are you doing?" asked Lily, panic growing in her voice. "Solving a problem. You know, I didn't plan this. When your parents suffered that accident, I thought everything would be resolved easily. But then I discovered your father left documents, evidence against me, and you somehow might know where they are." Lily swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, let's go back." Victor laughed coldly. "It's too late for that, Lily. The story I'm going to tell is very simple. The poor girl, devastated after losing her parents, couldn't bear the pain and, on a stormy night, disappeared. A tragedy, really." At that moment, a flash of lightning cut across the sky, followed by the rumble of thunder so close it made the ground shake. The rain suddenly intensified, transforming into a curtain of water. Lily knew she needed to act quickly. "The documents are on the blue flash drive," she cried desperately. "In the false bottom of the office drawer." Victor smiled, satisfied. "See, that wasn't so difficult. Thank you for confirming my suspicions, little one." With a calculated movement, he began tilting the wheelchair toward the abyss. Lily grabbed the armrests with all her strength, terror etched on her childish face. The rain now punished mercilessly, making it difficult to see. "Please don't do this," the girl begged. For an instant, Victor seemed to hesitate, but it was just a fleeting moment. His eyes hardened again. "I'm sorry, Lily, but there's too much at stake here." With a firm push, the wheelchair moved toward emptiness. Lily felt her stomach twist with the sudden loss of gravity. The world spun around her, rain and wind whipping her small body as she plummeted. The scream of terror remained trapped in her throat. From above, Victor observed for a few seconds before darkness and rain completely swallowed the girl. Satisfied, he turned around and began descending the path. He needed to return quickly, to retrieve the flash drive before anyone noticed his absence. What Victor didn't notice were the watchful eyes observing the entire scene from the edge of the forest. Among the soaked trees, an enormous black horse stood motionless, like an ebony statue. Its eyes, almost human in their intelligence, followed Lily's fall and then fixed on Victor's retreating figure. When the man disappeared around the bend in the path, the horse moved quickly toward the cliff. With surprising agility for an animal of its size, it began descending the steepest side, its hooves finding support where it seemed impossible. It was as if it knew every rock, every corner of that mountain. The legend of Thunder, the mysterious wild horse of the Blue Ridge Mountains, was known to all local residents. Some people claimed to have seen him in the most critical moments, always appearing out of nowhere like a silent guardian. On that stormy night, he would prove he was much more than just a legend. Lily's fall seemed endless. Her body spun in the air like a leaf in the wind, while the rain punished her skin. For a moment she accepted the inevitable, closing her eyes and thinking of her parents. Perhaps she would join them sooner than she imagined. But fate had other plans. The girl felt a dull impact when her body crashed into a tangle of branches and vegetation growing on the cliff face. The pain was intense, but that natural net had broken the impact of the fall. Lily remained suspended between the twisted branches, dangerously swaying above the abyss. Semi-conscious, the girl tried to grab onto what she could, but her numb fingers slipped on the wet surfaces. A low moan escaped her lips when she felt a sharp pang in her shoulder. It was then that she heard a sound, the sound of hooves approaching, impossible as it seemed. Through the curtain of rain, she glimpsed a dark, imposing form descending the steep slope. The magnificent black horse cautiously approached the spot where Lily was trapped. Its intelligent eyes assessed the situation. With surprising delicacy, it moved closer, positioning its body just below where the girl was hanging. "Please, help me," murmured Lily, uncertain if she was delirious. As if understanding her words, the horse whinnied softly and secured itself on the rocks, offering its back as a platform. Lily hesitated, but when she felt the branches beginning to give way under her weight, she had no choice. With a painful effort, she let go and fell onto the animal. The horse didn't move, allowing the girl to adjust herself on its back. Despite the piercing pain and the relentless rain, Lily managed to grab onto the animal's thick mane. As it felt she was secure, the horse began to move, climbing the slope by a different, safer path that only it seemed to know. "Who are you?" whispered Lily, resting her face against the warm neck of the animal. "Are you real, or am I dreaming?" A powerful thunder reverberated through the mountains, as if answering her question. Lily smiled weakly. "Thunder, that's what I'll call you." The horse seemed to approve, slightly quickening its pace as it followed invisible trails through the dense vegetation. Lily had no idea where they were going, but something inside her trusted this mysterious creature. Meanwhile, at the Rivers house, chaos had ensued. Mrs. Martha paced back and forth, distressed. "She should have been back. By now, something happened, I know it," she exclaimed to old Jack, the aging cowboy who had just arrived after receiving the cook's desperate phone call. The man with the graying hair and time-weathered face squeezed his hat between his hands, worried. "You said Victor took her for a ride? In the middle of a storm?" "Yes, he said he was going to show her a lookout point, but it's been more than an hour and—" They were interrupted by Victor's abrupt arrival. The rancher entered like a hurricane, soaked and with a somber expression on his face. "She ran away," he announced without preamble. "What?" Mrs. Martha brought her hands to her face. "What do you mean, ran away? She's in a wheelchair." Victor shook his head with false consternation. "We were at the lookout when a very loud thunder frightened her. She asked to be alone for a moment, said she wanted to feel the rain. I respected her space and stepped away a bit. When I returned, she had disappeared." Old Jack narrowed his eyes, suspicious. "And how does a 10-year-old girl in a wheelchair just disappear like that, Hammond?" Victor faced the cowboy coldly. "I have no idea. Maybe someone helped her. Maybe she had been planning this for some time. After all, after her parents' departure—" "That's absurd," exclaimed Mrs. Martha. "Lily would never run away." "We need to notify the authorities," said old Jack, not taking his eyes off Victor. "Start searching immediately." Victor nodded with false concern. "Of course, I've already called Sheriff Morgan. He's organizing a team, but with this storm, I doubt they'll be able to do much until dawn." Taking advantage of the confusion, Victor discreetly headed to the office. He needed to find the blue flash drive before anyone else knew of its existence. After a few minutes of frantic searching, he found the false bottom in the drawer mentioned by Lily. But to his despair, the compartment was empty. Far away, sheltered in a natural cave hidden among the rocky formations of the mountains, Lily and Thunder rested. The girl was trembling from cold and pain, but she was alive. She had found the strength to grab the small flash drive she always carried with her, hidden in a small pouch sewn into the lining of her jacket, a copy of the original that her father had made a few days before departing. "I don't know what's on here, Thunder," she murmured, holding the object between her injured fingers. But it must be important enough for Victor to want to eliminate me. The cave was surprisingly cozy. There were even traces that someone occasionally used it. An old blanket, some basic utensils, a flashlight. Lily wondered if this was Thunder's refuge or if there was someone else who knew about this hideout. Lily woke with a start, not knowing how long she had slept. The pain in her body was intense, but at least she was dry and relatively safe. Through the cave opening she could see that the storm continued, though with less intensity. Thunder was lying near her, like a silent guardian. The sound of rolling stones made the girl freeze. Someone was approaching. Thunder quickly stood up, positioning himself between Lily and the cave entrance. A figure appeared, too small to be one of Victor's men. "Is someone there?" whispered a young, apprehensive voice. Lily remained silent, her heart pounding in her chest. "I saw the horse coming in here. I know he's not alone," the voice insisted. Thunder whinnied softly, as if recognizing the visitor. The figure advanced, revealing a scrawny boy of approximately 12 years old, soaked and carrying a worn backpack. "Who are you?" asked Lily, trying to appear brave despite her fear. The boy approached cautiously, observing her with curiosity. "Sammy, and you must be the Rivers girl, the one who ran away," he replied, making air quotes around the last words. Lily sat up with difficulty, distrustful. "How do you know who I am?" Sammy shrugged, taking off his wet backpack and placing it on the ground. "Everyone in town is talking about it. Victor Hammond showed up in the village saying you ran away, devastated by your parents' absence. But nobody runs away in a wheelchair during a storm." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. "So you don't believe him?" "That man is faker than a $3 bill," answered Sammy with wisdom beyond his years. "Besides, I saw you two going up to the lookout. Something told me it wasn't just a simple walk." The boy opened his backpack, revealing some fruit, a piece of bread, and a water bottle. "I figured you'd be hungry." Lily didn't realize until that moment how hungry she was. She accepted the food gratefully, devouring the bread while Sammy sat in front of her. "How did you find me?" "I didn't find you, I found Thunder," he replied, pointing to the horse. "I've been in these mountains for years. I know every corner, every hiding place, and I know Thunder too. He always appears when someone is in danger. That's how he saved me when I ran away from the orphanage 2 years ago." Lily stared at the magnificent animal with renewed admiration. "So you and he? We're friends, I guess. He appears and disappears when he wants." "This cave is one of the places where we meet sometimes." Lily processed that information. She wasn't alone after all. She had Thunder, and now Sammy. "Victor tried to kill me," she revealed, her voice choked. "He pushed me off the cliff." Sammy didn't seem surprised. "I figured it was something like that. That man is dangerous. What did you do to make him want to eliminate you?" Lily showed him the flash drive she had kept with her. "I don't know exactly what's on here, but it must be something that could destroy him. My father left this before he left." "We need a computer to find out," said Sammy thoughtfully, "and I know the perfect place for that." In the village, news of Lily's disappearance spread like wildfire. Victor, acting as the concerned guardian, offered a generous reward for information about the girl's whereabouts. In private, he instructed his men to search every corner of the mountains. "I want her alive or not, it doesn't matter. But find her," he ordered his henchmen. "And if you see that damned black horse, finish him off too." Old Jack observed everything from a distance, his heart heavy with worry. He didn't believe a word Victor said, but without proof, his suspicions were just that. Suspicions. It was then that he noticed something strange. Mrs. Martha was nowhere to be found. "Has anyone seen Martha?" he asked one of the employees. "She left early, saying she needed to buy supplies," the man replied. "But that was hours ago." A sense of alarm ran through the old cowboy. First Lily, now Martha. Something was very wrong. He decided to visit Sheriff Morgan, one of the few men in the region who wasn't on Victor's payroll. "I believe we have 2 suspicious disappearances, Sheriff," he explained after relating his concerns. The sheriff, a robust man with a graying mustache, thoughtfully scratched his chin. I understand your concern, Jack, but I need more than suspicions to act against someone like Victor Hammond. What if I tell you I have reason to believe that Anthony Rivers and his wife didn't die in a simple accident? The sheriff's eyes narrowed. What kind of reasons? Anthony had been gathering evidence against Victor, something related to the springs on the property. I think he discovered something big, something that could ruin Victor's plans. The sheriff stood up, walking to the window of his small office. That's a serious accusation, Jack. I would need concrete evidence to start an investigation. The evidence might be with Lily, replied the cowboy, or perhaps that's why she disappeared. In the cave, Lily and Sammy were devising a plan. The rain had finally stopped, leaving in the air that characteristic fragrance of wet earth. There's a community center a few miles from here, explained Sammy. They have computers we can use, but it would be risky. Victor's men must be searching everywhere. We don't have a choice, replied Lily, determined. I need to find out what's on this flash drive. Only then can I prove what Victor did. Sammy nodded, helping her to stand up. Without her wheelchair, Lily depended completely on the boy's help and on Thunder. Can you ride? Asked Sammy, indicating the horse that seemed to be waiting patiently. Lily hesitated, uncertain. I've never ridden before. Hand my legs. Thunder isn't a regular horse, assured the boy with a smile. Trust him. With Sammy's help, Lily managed to climb onto the magnificent animal's back. Surprisingly, she felt secure there, as if Thunder knew exactly how to move, to compensate for her limitations. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from, and we'll continue. The rising sun was painting the sky in shades of orange as Lily, Sammy, and Thunder cautiously advanced through the mountains. They used secondary trails, almost invisible to untrained eyes, but which the boy and the horse seemed to know like the back of their hands. Lily clung to Thunder's mane, still amazed at the instant connection she had developed with the animal. Sammy, how do you survive out here alone? She asked, curious about the life of the boy who was helping her. The boy shrugged, nimbly jumping over a mud puddle. I manage. I do odd jobs in town, sometimes pick fruit from farms, fish in the river. The mountains feed and protect me. And your family? A heavy silence settled before Sammy answered. I don't have a family. I went to an orphanage after my mother left us, but I couldn't stand staying there. I prefer to be free, even if it's difficult sometimes. Lily felt a pang of compassion. Both had lost so much, but in different ways. If we can prove what Victor did, I promise things will change for both of us, she said, with determination. Sammy smiled, not fully believing the promise, but appreciating the sentiment. As they approached the village, they needed to be even more cautious. The community center was on the edge of town near the rural school. At this hour of the morning, it would probably be empty except for the cleaning staff. Let's leave Thunder here, suggested Sammy, indicating a small, dense grove. He would attract too much attention in town. As if understanding, the horse stopped and knelt slightly, facilitating Lily's descent. Sammy helped her, improvising a support with a strong branch he found. Lean on me, I'll help you walk. The community center was a simple building, painted light blue, with some broken and patched windows. As Sammy had predicted, the place was practically empty, with only an elderly lady cleaning the entrance hall. Mrs. Thompson, called Sammy with familiarity. Good morning. The woman adjusted her glasses, surprised to see the boy. Sammy, you rascal! Where have you been? And who is this young lady? This is my cousin from Oakville. She's visiting and needs to use the computer for a school assignment. May we? Mrs. Thompson looked suspiciously at Lily, noticing her dirty clothes and the tiredness on her face, but Sammy's pleading expression convinced her. Just don't take too long. The administration folks arrive at 9. With Sammy's help, Lily limped to the small computer room. The boy quickly turned on one of the old computers and inserted the flash drive. Let's see what's so important on here, he murmured as they waited for the slow system to load. The flash drive contained only one folder named Mountain Waters. Inside were various files, maps, contracts, aerial photos, and recordings. Lily opened one of the main documents, a detailed report signed by her father. "My God," she whispered as she read, "Sammy, this is huge." The report revealed that Victor had discovered enormous reserves of high-quality mineral water on the river's land, enough to supply large urban centers for decades. The rancher was planning to divert the course of rivers, dry up public springs, and monopolize access to the region's water, selling it at exorbitant prices to multinational companies. He forged documents to take possession of neighboring lands, continued Lily, going through the files. And my father discovered everything. There are even recordings of Victor admitting that he tampered with contracts. That explains why he wanted to get rid of you, said Sammy, impressed. With this evidence, he would go straight to jail. Lily paused at a folder marked Accident. With trembling hands, she clicked on it. Inside were photos and an independent forensic report that her father had commissioned. My parents' car. It wasn't an accident, her voice faltered as she confirmed the truth she had suspected deep down. The brakes were tampered with, Victor, Sammy placed his hand on her shoulder in solidarity. There were no words that could comfort such a discovery. We need to take this to Sheriff Morgan, said Lily, wiping away the tears that insisted on falling. He's the only one who isn't on Victor's payroll. As they were copying the files, they heard voices approaching down the hallway. Sammy peeked through the crack in the door and turned pale. It's Victor's men. How did they find us? It must have been Mrs. Thompson, whispered Lily. Victor is offering a reward for my capture, remember? Sammy looked around, desperate. The only way out was the window, but they were on the second floor. There's a tree nearby, he said, running to the window. I can climb down it, but you... Lily closed her eyes. For a moment, fear giving way to determination. Help me get there. I'll try. With effort, they managed to open the creaky window. Sammy went down first, agile as a monkey. The voices in the hallway grew louder. Quick, Lily! With her aching body and using all her willpower, Lily dragged herself to the window. When the men broke down the door to the computer room, they found only the computer turned on and the window open. Outside, Sammy had managed to help Lily down. Hidden among the bushes, they heard the shouting inside the building. We need to get back to Thunder, whispered Sammy. He's our only chance to escape. As they moved away, they didn't notice a figure watching them from a distance. Old Jack, mounted on his caramel-colored horse. The old cowboy frowned, intrigued. Could that really be Lily Rivers? The sky that had earlier promised a sunny day was now closing again in heavy clouds, as if nature itself reflected the drama unfolding in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Lily and Sammy dragged themselves as quickly as possible toward the grove where they had left Thunder, but the path seemed endless for Lily, who was fighting against pain and exhaustion. They're coming, warned Sammy, hearing the sound of engines approaching. They must have taken the jeeps. We won't make it in time. Lily stopped, leaning against a trunk, her breathing ragged. Go ahead, get Thunder. I won't leave you, protested the boy. It's our only chance, she insisted. You're fast, I'm just slowing you down. Go. Reluctantly, Sammy nodded and darted into the woods. Lily hid as best she could among the bushes, her heart racing as she heard the vehicles stop on the nearby road and the men begin searching on foot. They can't have gone far, she heard one of them say. The girl can barely walk. Victor wants... Them both, replied another, especially the flash drive. Lily clutched the small object tightly. The discoveries she had made still reverberated in her mind. Victor had not only planned to steal her family's land, but had also caused what happened to her parents. Anger fueled her determination to survive, to bring justice. The sound of branches breaking near her made Lily freeze. One of the men was just a few meters away. She held her breath, closing her eyes as if that could make her invisible. A powerful neigh cut through the air, followed by the sound of hooves thundering across the forest floor. Lily opened her eyes in time to see Thunder burst through the trees like a force of nature, Sammy clinging to his mane. The black horse charged directly at the men, who backed away, frightened. It's the horse! The damned horse! Shouted one of them, drawing a gun. Before he could aim, Thunder reared up, his front hooves menacingly striking the air. The man fell backward, firing into the air in panic. Taking advantage of the confusion, Sammy jumped off the horse and ran. To Lily. "Come on, quickly!" With the boy's help, Lily managed to drag herself to Thunder, who lowered his body slightly to make it easier for her to climb up. As soon as the two were on his back, the horse darted into the forest, following invisible. Trails that seemed to exist only for him. Gunshots echoed behind them, but soon became distant. Lily clung to Thunder's mane with one hand, and to Sammy with the other, while the boy guided the horse with confidence. "Where are we going?" she shouted, trying to make herself heard above the wind and hoofbeats. "To the only place we'll be. Safe. The ancient caves high in the mountains," old Jack observed from a distance, mounted on his horse using binoculars. He was sure of what he had seen. Lily Rivers, alive, fleeing with a boy on that legendary black horse that the older residents feared and respected. Without wasting time, he rode to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Morgan needed to know about this immediately. At the Rivers estate, Victor paced back and forth, furious. He had just received a call from his men informing him of their failure to capture Lily and the street boy. "Incompetence," he vociferated, throwing the phone against the wall. How can they lose a girl who can barely walk and a kid? What worried him most was the flash drive. If that information reached the authorities, everything would be lost. His plan to control the region's water, the false contracts, his involvement in the Rivers couple's death, everything would come to light. "We need to find them before they reach the Sheriff," he said to his trusted henchman, "activate all our contacts. I want every inch of those mountains watched." The man nodded but hesitated before leaving. "What about Mrs. Martha?" Victor smiled coldly. "Don't worry about her. She's resting. Permanently." What Victor didn't know was that Mrs. Martha, though severely injured, had managed to escape from the abandoned shed where they had left her. Dragging herself along the dirt road, she was found by a passing truck driver and rushed to the hospital in the neighboring town of Pinecrest. Thunder, Lily, and Sammy rode tirelessly up the mountain. The rain had returned, making pursuit even more difficult. After almost 2 hours of riding, they reached a rocky area where large formations rose like stone sentinels. "The ancestral caves," explained Sammy, pointing to dark openings between the rocks. The old residents said they were sacred. Few know the paths inside. "How do you know about these places?" asked Lily, as Sammy helped her down from the horse. The boy smiled mysteriously. "My grandmother was a healer. She knew every rock in these mountains, every healing plant, every hidden path. Before she passed, she taught me everything she knew." Thunder followed them into the main cave, which was surprisingly not as dark as it appeared. Natural openings in the ceiling allowed light to enter, creating an almost mystical environment. "We'll be safe here until we figure out how to get this evidence to the sheriff," said Sammy. Lily nodded, exhausted but determined. They found a dry space deeper in the cave, where the boy improvised a bed with leaves and the emergency blanket he carried in his backpack. "Rest a bit," he suggested. "Thunder and I will keep watch." Lily was about to protest when they heard a sound. It wasn't the pursuers, it was something different. The noise of a single horse approaching slowly. Thunder raised his head alert but showed no hostility. Sammy picked up a piece of wood, ready to defend them if necessary. A silhouette appeared at the cave entrance against the weak light of the rainy day. "Lily," called a familiar voice. "Is that you, girl?" Lily's heart leapt in her chest. "Old Jack?" Old Jack slowly advanced into the cave, his hands raised in a sign of peace. His aged face showed a mixture of relief and concern at seeing Lily alive. "Thank God you're all right," said the cowboy, approaching cautiously. "The whole town thinks you ran away or worse." "How did you find us?" asked Sammy, still holding the piece of wood distrustfully. "I saw you escaping at the community center," explained Jack, "and I know these mountains almost as well as you. Boy, there are few options for safe hiding around here." Lily studied the old cowboy's face. Her father had always said that Jack was one of the few truly trustworthy men in the region. Additionally, the message in the diary mentioned his name. "Old Jack, Victor tried to eliminate me," she revealed. "He pushed me from the lookout during the storm." The cowboy nodded gravely. "I suspected that from the beginning. The escape story never made sense." I have proof of everything he did, continued Lily, showing the flash drive, including what happened to my parents. It wasn't an accident. Old Jack closed his eyes for a moment, as if that confirmation brought an old pain to the surface. Your father was a good man, Lily. In the last few months he was restless, worried. He told me he had discovered something terrible about Victor, but didn't go into details. He wanted to protect me, I imagine. We need to take this evidence to Sheriff Morgan, said Lily, but Victor's men are everywhere. The sheriff is already on his way, revealed Jack with a small smile. As soon as I confirmed it was you, I sent him a message. He's one of the few who isn't on Victor's payroll. Sammy finally lowered his improvised club, looking more relaxed. How do we know we can trust the sheriff? Because he's my brother, replied Jack simply. And because he's also suspected Victor for a long time, just lacked proof. The revelation surprised Lily. Everything was starting to make sense. Her father trusted Jack because he knew of this connection with the sheriff. The sound of footsteps echoed from the cave entrance. Everyone turned, tense, only to see Sheriff Morgan enter, soaked by the rain, accompanied by 2 trusted officers. Lily Rivers, he said, with evident relief. You've caused quite a stir in town, girl. Lily couldn't contain the tears that began to roll down her face. After days of fear and uncertainty, she was finally before people who could help her. Sheriff, I have everything here, she said, extending the flash drive. All the proof of Victor's crimes. Morgan took the small object carefully, as if holding something precious. Before anything else, we need to get you out of here safely. Victor has mobilized men throughout the mountains. He's desperate. There's one more thing you need to know, interrupted Jack. Mrs. Martha is alive. I just received the information over the radio. Lily brought her hands to her face, shocked. What do you mean? What happened to her? Victor tried to silence her, but she survived. She's in the hospital in Pinecrest under police protection. Her testimony, along with this evidence, will be enough to arrest Victor for multiple crimes. A powerful lightning bolt illuminated the cave entrance, followed by the rumble of thunder that seemed to make the mountain itself tremble. Thunder, the majestic black horse, raised his head, alert. Something's wrong, murmured Sammy, approaching the animal. He senses danger. He had barely finished speaking when the sound of vehicles and male voices reached them. Through the cave entrance, they could see flashlights approaching along the trail. Victor and his men, said the sheriff, drawing his weapon. They must have followed us. Is there no way out of here without being seen? Asked Lily, fear returning. In full force. Sammy looked toward the back of the cave. There's a passage. It leads to another exit on the other side of the rock formation, but it's narrow and dangerous. Go, ordered the sheriff. Jack, take Lily and the boy. We'll cover you and meet you there. No, protested Lily. I won't leave you to face Victor alone. The sheriff knelt before her, holding her hands. Lily, you're the most important witness we have. Besides, I already have more men on the way. We just need to buy time. Reluctantly, Lily allowed old Jack to help her mount Thunder. Sammy climbed up behind her. The passage is too low for the horse, warned the boy. He knows what to do, replied Jack, surprising everyone. This isn't an ordinary horse. As if understanding, Thunder walked decisively to the back of the cave, where light barely reached. Jack followed them, carrying a flashlight the sheriff had given him. The passage was narrow, covered with millennia-old stalactites and stalagmites. Thunder advanced slowly, carefully choosing where to step. At certain points, the ceiling was so low that Lily and Sammy had to lie flat on the animal's back to avoid hitting their heads. How do you know this place? Lily asked Jack, who walked just behind them. When I was young, these caves were considered sacred by my people. My grandfather was the keeper of the mountain secrets. This sparked Lily's curiosity. Your grandfather? So you? Yes, confirmed the old cowboy. We are descendants of the first inhabitants of these lands, and Thunder, well, he's part of the ancient stories my grandfather used to tell, a protective spirit of the mountains who appears in moments of great danger. Lily looked at the majestic animal carrying her with such gentleness, thinking about how he had saved her from the abyss, how he seemed to understand everything around him. Perhaps there was more mystery in these mountains than she had ever imagined. The distant sound of gunshots echoed off the stone walls, making them quicken their pace. After what seemed like hours, but were probably just minutes, they glimpsed a faint light ahead, the exit. They emerged under the fine rain that was still falling in a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees. Jack consulted his watch. The sheriff's reinforcements should be arriving by now. We need to move a bit further away, find a safe place to wait. No, said Lily with surprising determination. I'm tired of running. Victor needs to be confronted. I need to be there when that happens. Sammy and Jack exchanged worried looks. Lily, it's too dangerous, argued the cowboy. I trust Thunder, she replied, stroking the animal's neck. He's protected me this far. Besides, the entire town needs to know the truth about Victor Hammond. A few miles away at the Rivers Ranch headquarters, Victor was frantically organizing his escape. He knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities arrived with arrest warrants. He placed important documents and a significant amount of money in a briefcase while instructing his trusted henchman. Prepare the helicopter. We'll be at the extraction point in an hour. What about the other men? Asked the henchman. Victor shrugged, indifferent. They're on their own now, every man for himself. What Victor didn't know was that his empire was already crumbling. News about Lily's survival and the accusations against him was spreading rapidly. One of his own men, seeing the tide turn, had already contacted the sheriff, offering information in exchange for leniency. Morning dawned over the Blue Ridge Mountains, gradually dispersing the clouds from the storm that had punished the region in recent days. The village awakened to what would be one of the most remarkable days in its history. As the first rays of golden sunlight touched the roofs of the simple houses, news spread like wildfire. Rivers was alive. Victor Hammond was in his office at the Rivers Ranch headquarters, finishing preparations for his escape, when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was from one of his informants in the police. Hammond, you'd better run. The sheriff has an arrest warrant and is on his way. They have everything, documents, recordings, witnesses. How much time do I have? Asked Victor, feeling cold sweat run down his back. Minutes, maybe. They're coming from all directions. Victor hung up, cursing. His helicopter escape plan now needed to be moved up. He had no more time to lose. He grabbed his briefcase with documents and money and ran to the vehicle parked at the back of the house. Meanwhile, in the village's central square, a crowd was beginning to form. The news that Sheriff Morgan would make an important announcement attracted curious residents. Among the whispers and speculations, a story was beginning to circulate. Lily, the girl everyone thought had run away, had survived an assassination attempt. Lily, Sammy, Old Jack, and Thunder had taken an alternative route after leaving the casting circling the mountain on hidden trails. They reached the village limits exactly when the commotion was beginning. Are you sure about this? Asked Jack, concerned for the girl's safety. Lily nodded, resolute. I need to be there. I need to see justice being done. Thunder slowly advanced through the dirt streets, attracting looks of astonishment and admiration. Many recognized the legendary Black Horse, but seeing him so close, carrying the girl everyone thought was missing, seemed like something out of a mystical tale. When they reached the square, the murmuring gradually ceased, giving way to a stunned silence. Lily, sitting proudly on Thunder with Sammy behind her, faced the crowd with a dignity that tugged at the hearts of all who saw her. It's her! It's the Rivers girl! Exclaimed someone, breaking the silence. Sheriff Morgan was in the center of the square next to some of his officers when he saw Lily approach. A slight smile of satisfaction appeared on his tired face. People of Blue Ridge, he began, his grave voice echoing across the silent square. I have the duty to inform you that Victor Hammond is being sought for multiple crimes, including fraud, corruption, attempted murder, and involvement in the tragedy that took the lives of Anthony and Mary Rivers. A murmur of shock ran through the crowd. Victor Hammond, the most powerful and respected man in the region, accused of such atrocities. The evidence is irrefutable, continued the sheriff, holding up the flash drive Lily had given him. And the main witness against him is alive. thanks to an intervention that some would call miraculous. All eyes turned to Lily, seated on the imposing black horse. The girl felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the weight of that moment. "Victor, Hammond tried to eliminate me," she said, her young but firm voice crossing the square. "He pushed me from the lookout during the storm, thinking my absence would eliminate the evidence against him. But Thunder saved me." As if understanding he was being mentioned, the black horse whinnied softly, slightly raising his head. "And that's not all," continued Lily. "He was planning to take complete control of the region's water, drying up public springs and diverting rivers. My father discovered everything and was going to report him. That's why." Her voice faltered for an instant, but she took a deep breath and continued. "That's why Victor caused the accident that took my parents from me." The crowd reacted with exclamations of horror and indignation. Many there had blindly trusted Victor for years, believing in his facade as a community benefactor. Suddenly, the roar of a powerful engine cut through the air. A jeep was advancing at high speed down the main street, raising dust. At the wheel, Victor Hammond, his face contorted into a mask of hatred and desperation. "He's trying to escape!" someone shouted. The police immediately took positions, but the crowd panicked, people running to get away from the out-of-control vehicle. Victor was heading straight for the center of the square, as if he wanted to run over anyone who stood in his way. "Everyone back!" ordered Sheriff Morgan, drawing his weapon. To everyone's surprise, however, Lily didn't retreat. Still mounted on Thunder, she advanced a few steps forward, directly facing the approaching vehicle. "Lily, no!" shouted Sammy, desperate. But the girl remained firm, her eyes fixed on the man who had destroyed her family. At the last moment, when it seemed inevitable that Victor would run her over, Thunder majestically reared up, his front hooves striking the air as a warning. Victor, surprised by the imposing vision of the black horse gleaming under the rising sun, sharply turned the wheel. The jeep skidded violently, spinning out of control before colliding with the old bandstand in the square. The impact was deafening. Wood and metal twisted in a macabre symphony of destruction. A sepulchral silence fell over the square. The officers ran to the overturned vehicle, weapons raised. Victor was found alive, but injured and disoriented. "Victor Hammond, you're under arrest," declared Sheriff Morgan, as the officers pulled him from the wreckage and handcuffed him. "For fraud, corruption, attempted murder, and involvement in the death of the Rivers." Lily observed everything from atop Thunder, her small shoulders finally relieved of the weight she had carried for so long. When their gazes met, Victor seemed to shrink before the strength he saw in the girl's eyes. "It's over," whispered Lily, more to herself than to others. In the weeks that followed, life in the Blue Ridge Mountains underwent profound transformations. Victor's empire crumbled like a house of cards. Documents revealed the extent of his network of corruption and manipulation. Former allies abandoned him, many also facing legal proceedings. Rivers Ranch legally returned to Lily, its sole heir. With old Jack's help and the legal support of Sheriff Morgan, the girl did something that surprised everyone. She transformed part of the land into an environmental reserve, forever protecting the springs her father had fought so hard to preserve. Mrs. Martha, recovered from her injuries, returned to care for Lily in the large farmhouse, which now seemed more welcoming than ever. Sammy, who never wanted to be separated from the friend fate had brought him, was legally adopted by Mrs. Martha, forming an unlikely but genuine family. And Thunder, the majestic black horse, remained free, as he should be. But he was frequently seen in the vicinity of the ranch, especially when storms approached. For the local residents, he became an even stronger symbol of protection and hope. On a golden autumn afternoon, Lily was sitting in her new wheelchair on the house porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and pink. Sammy was playing in the yard with the dogs they had adopted. Old Jack, seated in a nearby rocking chair, was telling old stories about the mountains and their mysteries. "Look," pointed the old cowboy, interrupting his story. On top of a nearby hill, silhouetted against the flaming sky, Thunder was observing the peaceful scene. As if sensing Lily's gaze, the horse reared slightly, his magnificent silhouette against the horizon, before majestically disappearing among the trees. "He'll always be nearby," said Jack with a serene smile. "Guardians like him never abandon their post." Lily smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Rivers Ranch, now transformed into Mountain Water Sanctuary, had become a refuge not only for rescued animals, but also for orphaned or abandoned children. A place where no one would ever be left behind, where stories of overcoming were written daily. In the pasture near the house, several rescued horses grazed peacefully. Among them, a white mare that Lily had recently saved from abuse. Some older. Residents whispered that they had seen thunder visiting the mare on full moon nights. Who knows? The mysteries of the Blue Ridge Mountains were endless. One thing was certain: as long as there was injustice to be fought or innocence to be protected, the echo of thunder's hooves would continue to resound through the mountains, a reminder that hope, like the majestic guardian of the mountains, can never truly be eliminated. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from.